Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Warships with the mighty Jingles. A couple of video clips for you today, beginning with, well, a ship that you don't see that often. This is a Tier 2 battleship. Yep, it's the only Tier 2 battleship in the game. It's the Japanese Mikasa. Is it any good? Well, no. Not really, no. It's pretty terrible. It's a premium Tier 2 battleship. I can't even remember what it was you had to do to get your hands on this thing. Let me go and look it up. Oh, it turns out she was actually on sale for a limited time for the 110th anniversary of the Battle of the Tsushima Straits during the Russo-Japanese War. Okay, well, there you go, that's nice. That explains when I got it. Have I played it much? Not really. I played one game, and I have to admit I didn't really fully understand what this ship was good for. I'll tell you what it's not good for, first of all. It's not good for shooting at anything, which is a fairly major part of the game, I'm sure you'll agree. These four 12-inch guns, 305mm guns, are pretty terrible. They are so incredibly inaccurate, and it only has four guns, mounted in two turrets, two up forward and two aft. However, it does have a lot of health. It's got almost Tier 3 battleship levels of health, well over 30,000. And it has a massive array of secondary gun batteries. It actually has 32 secondary guns, both 80 and 152mm. She was based on as many of the Japanese warships of that era were, based on a British design, a formidable class pre-dreadnought battleship, and actually, as many of the Japanese warships of that era were, actually built in Britain at the Vickers shipyard in Barrow-in-Furness, where she's actually remembered today by a street named after her, Mikasa Street. Now, obviously, as the only Tier 2 battleship in the game, she has incredibly good armour for a Tier 2 ship. And if you actually go to the World of Warships global wiki page and look up the entry on the Mikasa, it will try to tell you, with a straight face, that she is all but impervious to armour-piercing fire from anything but other battleships. Well, no shit, Sherlock. Who in cruisers and destroyers fires armour-piercing at battleships anyway? I mean, they don't, do they? They fire high explosive. And she's the only Tier 2 battleship in the game. And she was only available for a very, very limited time, so not a lot of people actually own this ship. If you take this thing into a random battle, and you get yourself a Tier 2 maximum game, you're probably going to be the only battleship in the match. So nobody is going to be firing armour-piercing at you, which means your armour is almost completely irrelevant. Almost. But not quite. She does actually have very, very thick belt armour, which really does take the sting out of torpedo hits. And while she is kind of fat, she's not that long, so she's not really that big a target. And she turns reasonably well as well for a battleship. So providing you're paying attention to what's going on around you, and you're not just sitting there waiting to see the torpedoes, you can actually, if you're any good, enjoy a reasonable degree of success in avoiding torpedoes fired at you in this ship. You are, of course, going to take the odd inevitable torpedo hit, but when you do, that anti-torpedo belt armour does a pretty good job of taking the worst of the sting out of it. Going back to this ship's World of Warships wiki entry for a moment, because there's another thing they say there that really makes me laugh, and it's to do with the guns. And it says, while the Mikasa's main battery guns are good, no, they're not. They're absolutely terrible. It only has four of them for a start, and okay, they are 12-inch guns, 305mm guns, and it's the only ship at Tier 2 to get guns this big, but you have to actually be able to hit something with them. And you just can't, regardless of the range. I have never seen a ship with guns as inaccurate as this thing. Got an example coming right up. This is Zero Guza, by the way. He sent this replay in today. Which is what prompted me to have a look at this ship again, because I've never really done a video on it. For good reason. It's not a very good ship, but just have a look at the inaccuracy of these guns. There's an enemy Erie-class cruiser. It's only a Tier 1, and he's hidden in that smokescreen. Guns are loaded, armour-piercing, bang, there he is, 5 kilometres away. Look, you can already see that neither of these shots are going to hit the target. One of them went about 300 metres beyond, and the other one landed about 300 metres short. And they're fired from the same turret. The shots didn't even land in the same postcode. You thought that was bad? Hang on, I've got one even better. What's this? This is a co-op battle that I played today. What's this? That's a Chikama Tier 2 cruiser. It's got about 30mm of armour. And yeah, didn't penetrate his armour. That's spalling damage. What exactly is the point of having these 12-inch guns if you can't penetrate the armour of a Tier 2 cruiser with them? You thought that? Well, okay, here we go. Watch this, St. Louis. This is unbelievable. Okay, I've got the side of the ship. Sailing broadside onto a battleship. That's a paddling. My secondary batteries open up. A word on the secondary batteries of this ship in a moment, but here we go. No damage. None. None whatsoever. I didn't even get spalling damage from firing these 305mm guns into the side of the St. Louis at point blank range. The secondaries are the ones doing all the damage here. Shots out again. Bang. 770 damage. That's a non-penetrating armour-piercing hit. On the side, okay, it was a reasonably well-angled side of the St. Louis, but it's still just a cruiser, and these are 12-inch guns. Right, screw this, I'm not shooting into the hull of the St. Louis anymore. So my next shot goes through his superstructure. Still doesn't come anywhere near the maximum 7,700 potential damage of these shots, because it's not a citadel penetration, but it's the most damage I've done so far. But now watch this. Watch this. Guns are about to reload. Missed. Aimed at the waterline because he turned the ship broadside on, finally able to get a citadel penetration, and at a range of less than 1 kilometre, these guns missed. Meanwhile, going back to Zero Goose's game, he finally, come on, bingo, finally scores his first hit of the match and takes out that Erie at a range of less than 5 kilometres before he was finally able to hit something. And personally, I still think he just got lucky. However, while the main gun batteries on the Mikasa are unquestionably diabolically bad, the secondaries are pretty impressive. You no doubt saw the sheer volume of firepower that the secondary batteries on my Mikasa were putting out in that previous clip. This ship has 32 secondary gun batteries, 80 and 152mm. It's like having a St. Louis class cruiser strapped to each side of your ship. In Zero Goose's match here, he's going to get multiple kills, and he's going to get most of them with his secondaries. Now, I don't know how much that's going to appeal to anybody, because the idea of just steering a floating target around and letting the AI gunners do the job for you isn't necessarily going to appeal to everybody. But it is effective. Watch this. That's the German Tier 1 cruiser. He's on full health when he steams around that corner. 9,000 health. Secondary batteries start lighting him up. Now, Zero Gooser isn't actually able to bring all of his portside secondary batteries to bear on this guy just yet. He fires his main battery guns, and again, watch this. Any second now. Bang. 770 damage. That did not penetrate the side of a Tier 1 cruiser, so he thinks, screw this, starts turning the ship around so all of his starboard side secondaries can light this guy up. He's only done 770 damage with his main battery guns. This guy had 9,000 health when he came around the corner. And now all of his starboard side secondaries can shoot at this guy, and it just blows him out of the water. I mean, that's what this thing does. Now, I'm not sure if that makes for compelling or interesting gameplay, but, oh, here we go. 5 kilometres, less than 5 kilometres, 4.9. And you can already see that neither of those shells are going to hit that target. Shots fired from the same turret deviate so incredibly wildly, which basically means when you're driving the Mikasa, particularly in a Tier 2 maximum battle, where you would expect to be an absolute powerhouse as the only Tier 2 battleship that's probably in the match, you're effectively relegated to the role of helmsman. All you do is steer the ship and try to get the ship close enough for your secondary battery AI gunners to farm all the kills for you. I don't know how interesting that's going to be, but it is effective. The only problem is actually getting close enough to do that, because this is not a very fast ship. Right, come on, surely he can hit him at this range. Come on, do it for Daddy. There we go, shots out. Yay, finally! So how many shots has he actually landed on target so far in this match, at ranges of 5 kilometres or less, with his main battery guns? It's no big secret, it's right up there at the top of the screen. 2. And he's got 3 kills. Hooray! Oh, this ship is terrible. I'll tell you what this ship is for. This ship is for seal clubbing at low tiers. If you get into a Tier 2 match with this ship, where the overwhelming majority of people you're going up against are going to be very, very new to the game, they're going to get close, and your secondary batteries are going to murder them. But the second you come across anybody who has even the faintest idea of what he's doing, he's just going to take you to school, because he won't sail within range of your secondary gun batteries, and therefore you won't be able to hit him with anything. And he's just going to take you apart piece by piece with long-range, high-explosive gunfire. And he will quite easily be able to do that, because he's going to be faster than you, and in some cases his guns are going to have a longer range than you. Just like that guy over there in the Tier 1 cruiser, who, again, took a hit. Did you see that? He took a hit from a 12-inch gun in a Tier 1 cruiser and it didn't penetrate his armour. Oh, the guns on this thing are so bad. And Zero's had enough of this. He was losing to a Tier 1 cruiser in a Tier 2 battleship, so he turns it around. He's never going to catch that guy. And instead he goes after this Dresden. Dresden, less than 5 kilometres away, aims at the waterline. One misses. One hits his funnel, only does 770 damage. But the Dresden's in trouble now, as he's about to sail within range, there they go, of his secondary gun batteries. And the Dresden is a very good little Tier 2 cruiser, by the way. I think it's absolutely fantastic. It's kind of like a lightly armoured Tier 2 version of the St. Louis. It's got the same kind of firepower. Just look at the rate of fire coming out of the guns mounted in the side of that ship. But the Dresden is sailing broadside onto a battleship, and normally that would be a paddling. Except this is the Mikasa, and yes, he did just land a hit directly into the side of the hull of the Dresden, which has terrible armour. Shot went in, underneath the bridge, didn't penetrate, and only did 770 damage. But now, all of the secondary batteries on the starboard side are able to fire. And this is where the damage starts mounting up. You know, I'm almost tempted to recommend just not bothering firing armor piercing at anything in this ship. Just fire high explosive. Look at that. 2 hits this time. Both of them actually hit the target straight into the side of a Tier 2 light cruiser. Neither of them penetrated his armor. It's the secondary batteries that are going to kill this guy. Any second now. Come on. And bingo, there you go. Did it again. Secondary batteries for the win. What does the wiki entry on this ship say again? While the main battery guns are very good... Oh, really? Based on what evidence, exactly? Oh, well, yeah, no, they're not. They are absolutely, just abysmally bad. The secondaries, absolutely fantastic. It is quite literally like having a Tier 3 St. Louis cruiser strapped to each side of your ship. But the main gun batteries on this thing are monstrously shit. There is no other way to describe them. Unfortunately, this one ended up being a loss for Zero. He just was not able, because of the slow speed of this ship, to get over there and reset this cap in time. Now, there is a slight discrepancy here on the post-battle results screen. It says there he scored 7 hits with his main battery guns, but when you come to the actual battle summary itself, it says 8 hits. But regardless of whether it was 7 or 8 hits, his main battery 12-inch guns still only did 9,700 damage with his armor-piercing shells. The majority of those hits did not penetrate and only did 770 spalling damage whenever they hit a Tier 1 or 2 cruiser. His secondaries, on the other hand, all of those 80 and 152mm guns, they did twice the damage of his main battery guns. And this is shocking, if you have a look at the hit rate of the main battery guns, and let's just assume that this screen is accurate, and he did actually score 8 hits, that's a 25% hit rate with his main battery guns. His secondaries had a 23% hit rate. But if this screen is accurate, and he only scored 7 hits with his main battery guns, that means his secondaries not only did twice as much damage, but they were also more accurate. Now, I realise that this is something of an academic point, because you can't actually buy the Mikasa anymore. It was only available on the 110th anniversary of the Battle of Tsushima Strait. But if it does return to the premium shop, and it probably will at some point, would I recommend the Mikasa Premium Tier 2 battleship? It's kind of difficult. Because it's only Tier 2, it's going to be as cheap as chips. But that in no way, shape or form makes up for just how incredibly bad the guns on this ship are. In fact, what about Tom Hanks? Tom Hanks, would you get the Mikasa? Tom Hanks would not get the Mikasa, and Tom Hanks managed to kill a tiger with a Colt 45 pistol, so there's a recommendation for you. Oh, I don't know. It is a fun ship, I suppose, if your idea of fun is seal clubbing in Tier 2 games, and you don't come up across anybody who actually knows what they're doing. But this thing doesn't just get into Tier 2 games, does it? It gets into Tier 3 games, and Tier 3 battleships will absolutely whoop your ass. In fact, anybody in a Tier 3 cruiser will whoop your ass if they know what they're doing. And they just stay out of range of your secondary battery guns, which is incredibly easy to do in this thing because it is so incredibly slow. It does still exist, by the way, which is quite surprising. In fact, it is the only surviving example of a pre-Dreadnought battleship anywhere in the world. It was sunk after the Russo-Japanese War by an accidental magazine explosion, but was salvaged and refloated, and now exists today as a museum ship in Yokosuka. So that's something for me to add to the list of things to do when I eventually get around to visiting Japan. You never know, one day, maybe. Anyway, that's it for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time. Actually, Jingles, Tom Hanks's character in Saving Private Ryan did not destroy a Tiger with a bullet fired from his Colt 45 sidearm. He was in fact merely shooting at the Tiger when it was destroyed by a bomb. Said bomb was dropped onto the Tiger by a fighter bomber, which... Jingles?